'Twas the night before Christmas, when all through the house not a creature was stirring, not even a mouse. The stockings were hung by the chimney with care, in hopes that St. Nicholas soon would be there. The children were nestled all snug in their beds, while visions of sugar plums danced in their heads, and Mamma in her kerchief and I in my cap had just settled our brains for a long winter's nap. When out on the lawn there arose such a clatter, I sprang from the bed to see what was the matter. Away to the window I flew like a flash, tore open the shutters and threw up the sash. The moon on the breast of the new fallen snow gave the lustre of midday to objects below, when what to my wondering sight should appear but a miniature sleigh and 8 tiny reindeer. With a little old driver, so lively and quick, I knew in a moment it must be St. Nick. More rapid than eagles his coursers they came, and he whistled and shouted and called them by name. Now Dasher, now Dancer, now Prancer and Vixen, on Comet, on Cupid, on Donner and Blitzen, to the top of the porch, to the top of the wall, now dash away, dash away, dash away all. As dry leaves that before the wild hurricane fly, when they meet with an obstacle, mount to the sky, so up to the housetop the coursers they flew, with the sleigh full of toys, and St. Nicholas too. And then, in a twinkling, I heard on the roof the prancing and pawing of each little hoof. As I drew in my head and was turning around, down the chimney St. Nicholas came with a bound. He was dressed all in fur from his head to his foot, and his clothes were all tarnished with ashes and soot. A bundle of toys he had flung on his back, and he looked like a peddler just opening his pack. His eyes, how they sparkled, his dimples, how merry. His cheeks were like roses, his nose like a cherry. His droll little mouth was drawn up like a bow, and the beard of his chin was as white as the snow. The stump of a pipe he held tight in his teeth, and the smoke, it encircled his head like a wreath. He had a broad face and a little round belly that shook when he laughed like a bowl full of jelly. He was chubby and plump, a right jolly old elf, and I laughed when I saw him in spite of myself. A wink of his eye and a twist of his head soon gave me to know I had nothing to dread. He spoke not a word, but went straight to his work and filled all the stockings, then turned with a jerk, and laying his finger aside of his nose and giving a nod, up the chimney he rose. He sprang to his sleigh, to his team gave a whistle, and away they all flew like the down of a thistle. But I heard him exclaim ere he drove out of sight, "Happy Christmas to all, and to all a good night."
The following just seems to emphasise the old adage, never work with children. December, and that time of year when the vicar of the small Yorkshire village went into the primary school to chat to the children. This is a very special time of year, he started jovially. Can anyone tell me what it is? It's Christmas, volunteered a small wiry child. It is indeed, agreed the vicar. And I'm getting a bike, the small boy informed him, which seemed to be a signal for all the rest of the class to join in and shout out what they were hoping to receive. Children, children, exclaimed the vicar. Christmas is not just about presents. It's a wonderful celebration of the birthday of of a very special baby. And I know what it were called, chipped in that same rather vocal child. The vicar interlaced his fingers and, smiling encouragement, added, I'm very pleased to hear that. It were called Wayne, the child continued eagerly. Wayne? Interrupted the vicar, rather horrified. What a thought! It were, insisted the boy. Babby were called Wayne. No, countered the vicar, beginning to regret he'd ever agreed to visit the school that day. The baby was called Jesus. No, it were Wayne, persisted the child. I know, 'cause we sang that song about it in assembly. You know the one, a Wayne in a manger.
I'm the fairy in the panto down the village hall again. I've been the blooming fairy since I don't know when. I really feel like I need a change. I do it every year, but every time I mention it, no one seems to hear. I asked to play Prince Charming when we did the first rehearsal, but they said my bust was much too large to do the role reversal. I would have played another part, but they said the roles were taken. So I'm doomed to be the fairy, unless I'm much mistaken. But me tutu is getting shabby, and the seams have come undone. And when the crotch is round your knees, the tights are not much fun. I look like an old dishcloth, and my hem's no longer straight. But they say it's not the costume's fault. It's me. I've put on weight. I think my hearing's on the blink. I'm missing half my cues. And I'll have to wear my slippers because my bunions can't stand shoes. I suppose I'll need a fixative to keep my dentures tight, or they'll end up on the front row when I speak on opening night. Not that I have much to say. My part is very small. I wave me wand and say 2 lines and pirouette, that's all. But I'll have to take it easy when I do the pirouette, because I've had a hip replacement and my legs are wonky yet. I'm scared of slipping on the floor, because that would be bad news. I might upset the apple cart and loosen all my screws. I dyed my hair the other day. I thought no one would guess, but it ended up bright orange. So now I look a mess. I suppose my mind is youthful, but my body's full of age, and it's knowing how to blend the two when you're up there on the stage. It's not easy being a fairy when you're fat and well past 50, and arthritis starts to plague your joints and your body's not so nifty. But I can't complain or grumble, because I don't want them to hear, or they might not ask me back again to play the part next year.
To my dear husband. No. Dear Chris. No. Dear Nick. Dear Saint Nick. No. Dear Mr. Claus. I'm so sorry it has come to this. We've been married for over a dozen centuries, and yet somehow we've grown apart. Maybe it's the fact that you spend more time with your reindeer than you do with me. Or that you don't feel complete unless you're down in your workshop, slave driving those poor elves. The rest of the world sees you as unceasingly jolly, a constant beacon of merriment. But they don't know the real Claus. Quiet, sullen, a workaholic who drinks too much eggnog. And what about that bowl full of jelly you call a stomach? Maybe you should spend less time making a list and checking it twice, and more time on the treadmill. I'm sorry, I don't mean to lash out. None of these things really matter. They aren't why I'm leaving you. The truth is, I've met someone new. It doesn't matter who it is. All that matters is how I feel when we spend time together. Hiding Easter eggs and decorating chocolate rabbits. All that matters is that we are happy. And I truly hope that you find happiness too. Maybe with the Tooth Fairy. She's always had a thing for you. You have my blessing. Goodbye, my husband. I'm leaving this note next to a glass of milk and some cookies for old time's sake. Farewell.
Oh, hello, Mrs. Vinton. I'm so pleased you were able to come along and see our nativity rehearsal. Can you squeeze in there? Our chairs are a wee bit wee, as they say north of the border. Now, children, we're going to start our rehearsal. Where are my Mary and Joseph? That's right, Shirley. Take Dennis by the hand and come and sit on this bench in there. No, Shirley, don't drag him, Shirley. He'll come. Oh, children, don't hit each other. Mary and Joseph were friends. Now, who are my wise men? Barry, you're a wise man, aren't you? Aren't you? Well, what are you then? Oh, you're a cattle. And you're going to low. Splendid. Go over to Miss Bolting. Miss Bolting, you're looking after the animals and the angels, aren't you? Barry's one of yours. Now then, wise men, Billy, Peter and George. George. Wise men never do that. Now, my kings, please. Of course, Mrs. Vinton, we do know that traditionally the wise men and the kings are one and the same, but we do like everybody in the nursery to have the chance to shine, so we've taken a few liberties, and I don't think anyone will mind. Kings, Sydney, Neville, Cliff, and Nicholas Ananiades. 4 kings, I'm afraid. Well, we do have 4 rather lovely crowns, and it did seem a pity not to use them. Sydney, put your crown on straight, please, and not over one eye. Sydney, what have you got under your jersey? Well, that's not the place for a hamster, is it? Put him back in his little pen. Sydney, which one have you got? Is it Paddington or Boris Johnson? Well, who's got Paddington? Neville. Put him back at once, poor Paddington and Boris Johnson. It's not very nice for them and Christmassy under your jerseys. Well, Sydney, I think it serves you right if Paddington's bitten you. And don't bite him back. Oh, because he's smaller than you are. And are you bleeding? Well, then don't make such a fuss. Cliff, put your crown on, please. Why can't you? It's too big. Come here, let me see. Oh, yes, it is, isn't it? Where are you? Oh, there you are. Nice to see you again. I think perhaps you'd better swap with Nicholas. You can manage a big crown, can't you? You've got just the ears for it. I think if you pull your ears down a little, dear, the crown will just sit on it. And lean back. Yes, that's it, dear, don't move. Wise men and kings, don't muddle yourselves up, please. Now then, shepherds. Jimmy, you are my first shepherd and not a racing car. Yes, Caroline, you are a shepherd. No, you can't wear your little Bo Peep costume. Well, because there aren't any little girl shepherdesses in our play. There are only boy shepherds, and you are a girl pretending to be a boy shepherd. Yes, I know it's rotten, but that's just the way it is. Perhaps if you are very good, you can wear a lovely grey beard. George, what is it wise men never do? Thank you. Jimmy, do you remember what you're going to say? You're going to point your hand up into the sky and you see something lovely, don't you? What is it? No, not a baby. Try again. It's a lovely silver star, and you are going to put your hand up, and what are you going to say? No, Sydney, he is not going to say, can you go to the bathroom? Children, it's not funny. It's a perfectly natural function, and we might as well get used to it. You're going to say, behold, aren't you, Jimmy? It's a lovely silver star, and you're going to say, behold. Well, you said it yesterday. You think you'd rather say it tomorrow? Very well. Well, you know, Mrs. Binton, I do feel we've broken the back of the play now, so I think we'd better finish for the day. Children, give your crowns back in, please. No, Sydney, you can't wear it home on the bus. You know, Mrs. Binton, I think it'll be all right on the night, but I think next year we might make do with singing Away in a Manger.
I've told you before, I'm not wearing this, it makes me look daft. So, I'll tell you an old Christmas story while we sit around the log fire at night. Why each Christmas tree has a fairy on top, and why Santa's beard is so white. It happened one winter in England, on a dark Christmas Eve long ago. There was Santa out doing his rounds and playing on t' sledging t' snow. He were taking all t' presents to houses, and then, when that first job were done, he went round again with his fairies, putting Christmas trees in every one. Now just when he thought he might finish, and t' last house were almost in sight, he went to fetch more trees off toboggan, and found he were just 4 trees light. This discovery quite upset Santa, so he gave his reindeer a shout, "Wallop!" and he sent for his Christmas tree fairy to chastise her for leaving them out. "Hey, by gum, there's a daft little fairy. That's as daft as a fairy could be. When they packed up sledge this evening, they must have missed off some at trees." "Oh, bugger," replied little fairy, which was really quite unfairy-like. "I'll have to go back to the factory." And with that, she jumped on her bike. "Hold on a minute," cried Santa. "There's a way that won't let you forget. Fetch 1 tree for each of your fingers on the right hand. That way you'll get it right yet." Then off like a shot went our fairy, much faster than the light from the sun, because Einstein hadn't yet been invented, so she wasn't to know it weren't quite done. Now, if you could have watched little fairy, there were trouble to come, you could tell, for when she were counting her fingers, she counted her thumb in as well. Now Santa, he waited for hours, till his patience were running quite dry, till at last he saw fairy pedalling, for all she were worth, through to the sky. But then, as fairy got nearer, Santa's anger it grew more and more. He could see from the load she was bearing that she was fetching him 5 trees, not 4. Then Santa got redder and redder, started roaring with all of his might, till the glow from his nose outshone Rudolph, and his beard, it began to turn white. "Why, the stupid," he yelled at the fairy. "That's 4 times as thick as I thought. Now go and put trees in the last house, and as soon as that's finished, report. Straight away off went our fairy, and as soon as she'd finished last place, she brought fifth tree back to Santa and waved it in front of his face. Whatever shall I do with this one? Our innocent fairy required. So Santa he upped and told her, 'cause by now he were feeling right tired. The fairy she looked up at Santa, and her face it turned a mite red, but then like a good little fairy she was, she went and did as he said. So now at the end of my story, you'll see why to this very night each Christmas tree has a fairy on top, and why old Santa's beard is so white. Happy Christmas everyone.